The sun was just beginning to set over our backyard in Springfield, Virginia, casting long shadows across the freshly mowed lawn. It was Memorial Day, and the smell of grilled burgers still hung in the air. My wife, Sarah, was inside cleaning up, while our neighbors packed up their lawn chairs, heading home after our small neighborhood gathering. I was sitting on the back porch, watching my 7-year-old daughter, Emma, chase fireflies in the dimming light. She had been unusually quiet during the barbecue, which wasn't like her at all. Emma was typically the life of any party, asking a million questions and making everyone laugh with her observations about the world. But today, something seemed different. As the last firefly escaped her grasp, Emma walked over to where I sat, her small sneakers making soft sounds on the wooden deck. She climbed up onto my lap without a word, something she hadn't done in a while. "Daddy?" she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, sweetheart." I wrapped my arms around her, feeling the warmth of the Virginia evening on both our faces. She was quiet for a moment, picking at a loose thread on my old army t-shirt. Then she looked up at me with those big brown eyes and asked the question that would unravel a story I had kept buried for 15 years. "Did they ever give you back your medal?" My heart stopped. The sounds of the neighborhood faded into a dull buzz. My hands involuntarily tightened around her, and I felt Sarah's presence in the doorway behind us. "What do you mean, honey?" I managed to ask, though my throat felt like sandpaper. Emma looked down at her hands. "Today at school before the holiday, Mrs. Martinez told us about Memorial Day. She said soldiers get medals for being brave. Tommy's dad showed us his medals after school last week. He has them in a special box in his living room." She paused, then looked up at me again. "But you never show me yours, Daddy. You have that picture in your office, the one where you're in your uniform, but I've never seen any medals. Did you lose them? Or did they take them back because of something bad?" The innocence of her question hit me harder than any physical blow. Here was my little girl, worried that her father had done something wrong. Sarah stepped out onto the porch, her hand resting gently on my shoulder. We had talked about this moment for years, wondering when Emma would be old enough to ask, to understand. "I didn't lose them, sweetheart," I said finally. "And nobody took them away. It's just complicated. But you were brave, right?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Mr. Peterson said all soldiers are brave. You're brave, aren't you, Daddy?" "Come here," I said, shifting her so she could see my face clearly. Sarah reached over to turn on the porch light. "I want to tell you a story. It's a true story about something that happened a long time ago before you were born. But you need to understand something first. Being brave doesn't always look the way you think it does. Sometimes being brave means making really hard choices that other people might not understand." Emma nodded seriously, settling back against my chest. Sarah pulled up a chair beside us, her eyes glistening. "I was deployed to Afghanistan," I began. "I was a staff sergeant, which meant I was in charge of a group of soldiers. They were my responsibility, my brothers. We were stationed at a forward operating base in Kandahar province." Emma listened intently, her breathing slow and even against my chest. "One day we received orders for a mission. We were supposed to clear a village where intelligence suggested there was enemy activity. It was supposed to be straightforward, in and out. But nothing in war is ever straightforward." "What happened, Daddy?" Emma asked softly. "That's where the story really begins, sweetheart. And it's a story about choices, about doing what you believe is right, even when it costs you everything." The morning of August 15th, 2010, started like any other day at FOB Kandahar. The sun rose over the mountains, turning the desert landscape into shades of orange and gold. The temperature was already pushing 90 degrees at 6 in the morning, and we knew it would hit 120 by midday. My squad consisted of 9 men. There was Corporal James Martinez from Texas, Private First Class David Wong, quiet but sharp, Specialist Aaron Thompson, our medic, who carried pictures of his newborn daughter in his helmet. These weren't just soldiers to me, they were family. We gathered in the briefing room. Captain Richard stood at the front, his face showing the stress of too many missions and too little sleep. "Gentlemen," he began, tapping a spot on the map, "this is the village of Kala Inau, approximately 15 clicks northwest. Intelligence suggests Taliban fighters are using compounds in this village to stage attacks on supply convoys." I studied the map carefully. Something felt off immediately. The village was larger than typical targets, and the intelligence seemed thin. When I asked about civilian population estimates, Richards hesitated. "Intelligence suggests most civilians have evacuated. You'll be going in at first light tomorrow to clear the compounds and neutralize any enemy combatants." After the briefing, I pulled Richards aside. Sir, most civilians have evacuated isn't the same as no civilians present. What's our ROE on this? Richards looked tired. Martinez, you follow standard protocol. Positive identification before engagement. But this intel comes from reliable sources. We need to disrupt their operations. That night I couldn't sleep. Something about the mission felt wrong, and I had learned to trust my instincts over 3 deployments. We loaded into the MRAPs before dawn. The mood was tense but focused. As we drove through the darkness toward Kala Inao, I went over the plan again and again in my head. We reached the village just as the sun began to rise. The place was quiet, too quiet. Most Afghan villages had activity by this hour, but Kala Inao was silent as a grave. Something's not right, Wong whispered beside me. Where is everyone? We were halfway to the first compound when I saw movement in a window. Through my scope, I could make out the shape more clearly. It wasn't a fighter. It was a child, maybe 5 or 6 years old, watching us with wide, terrified eyes. My radio crackled. Martinez, what's the holdup? You have clearance to proceed. I signaled for Wong and Thompson to move up with me. We approached carefully. As we got closer, I heard it. Voices. Not the voices of fighters, but the voices of families. Children crying. Women talking in hushed, frightened tones. Radio command. Richard's voice came through. Martinez, report. Why have you stopped? I made a decision that would change everything. Sir, we have positive confirmation of civilians in the first compound. Multiple women and children. Request permission to modify approach. There was a long pause. Negative. Intelligence indicates enemy combatants using civilians as cover. Proceed with clearing operations as planned. I looked at my men, saw the uncertainty in their faces. Thompson met my eyes, gave a slight shake of his head. He had heard the children too. Sir, requesting clarification. Are you ordering me to treat women and children as potential combatants? Another pause, longer this time. Martinez, you have your orders. Secure the compounds. If you encounter resistance, you are cleared hot. Command out. I stood there in the growing heat, my squad looking to me for leadership. Inside that compound were families who had nowhere else to go, caught between Taliban fighters who might or might not be in the village, and American soldiers who had been told to clear the area by any means necessary. This was the moment. This was the choice that Emma had innocently asked about. Listen up, I said quietly to my squad, gathering them close. Here's what we're going to do. I made the call that would define the rest of my life. Instead of following the order to clear the compounds with force, I decided we would approach differently. We knocked on doors. We identified ourselves. We gave families time to gather their belongings, and we escorted them one by one to a safe area. It took us 4 hours instead of the planned 90 minutes. 4 hours during which my radio never stopped crackling, with increasingly angry demands from command. 4 hours during which my men trusted me, followed me, even though they knew we were disobeying direct orders. We found no Taliban fighters in Kala Inao that day. What we found was 63 civilians, mostly women, children, and elderly men, who had been trapped in their homes, too afraid to leave. The reliable intelligence had been wrong. When we returned to base, I was immediately ordered to Captain Richards' office. My men were separated from me, taken for debriefing. Do you have any idea what you've done? Richards said, his voice low and dangerous. You disobeyed direct orders in a combat zone. You endangered your entire squad. It accomplished keeping 63 innocent people alive, sir, I replied, and ensuring my men didn't have to live with shooting children. That's not your call to make, Sergeant. You follow orders. When you start second-guessing every order, people die. With respect, sir, following that order might have meant innocent people died. I made a judgment call based on the situation on the ground. What followed were the longest 3 weeks of my military career. There was an investigation, interviews with every member of my squad, reviews of the radio transcripts. I was restricted to base. My men stood by me. Every single one of them gave statements supporting my decision, describing what we had heard, what we had seen, the families we had helped evacuate. But the military has a chain of command for a reason, and I had broken it. The investigation concluded that while my concerns about civilian casualties were noted, I had nevertheless disobeyed direct orders in a combat situation. I was called into Colonel Patricia Brennan's office 3 weeks after the incident. Staff Sergeant Martinez, she began, I'm going to be frank with you. What you did was both the most courageous and most foolish thing I've seen in my 23 years of service. I stood at attention, saying nothing. You made a moral choice in an impossible situation. That's admirable, But you broke the chain of command. You made a unilateral decision that could have gotten your entire squad killed. Yes, ma'am, I said quietly. Here's what's going to happen. You're being recommended for a Bronze Star for valor for your overall service during this deployment. That recommendation stands. My heart lifted for a moment. However, you're also being given a formal reprimand for disobeying orders. This will go in your permanent record. Your career advancement will be significantly limited. I nodded, accepting it. It was better than a court-martial. And one more thing. You need to decide if you can continue to serve in a military where you might face this kind of situation again. Can you live with following orders you don't agree with? I thought about it for a long moment. Finally, I answered honestly, no, ma'am, I don't think I can. 3 months later, I completed my deployment and returned home. Instead of re-enlisting like I had planned, I put in my separation papers. I left the army with an honorable discharge, a Bronze Star I never had the heart to display, and a formal reprimand that would always be part of my record. Back on the porch in Springfield, Virginia, 15 years after that day in Afghanistan, I finished telling Emma the story. The night had fully settled in now, and Sarah had brought out a blanket to wrap around our daughter. So you do have a medal, Emma said finally. But you don't keep it out because it reminds you of something complicated. That's right, sweetheart. That medal represents bravery, but it also represents a really difficult time when I had to choose between following orders and doing what I thought was right. But you saved those families, Emma said, looking up at me with absolute certainty. You saved the children. I did, but I also broke the rules. And in the military, rules are really important because they keep people safe. Emma was quiet for a moment. What happened to the other soldiers? The ones who were with you? I smiled. Most of them stayed in the army. Martinez is a sergeant major now, stationed in Germany. Wong went to officer candidate school, and he's a captain. Thompson got out like I did, and he's a physician assistant in Seattle. We still keep in touch. We message each other every Memorial Day, actually. Do they think you did the right thing? They do. They told me so many times. Sarah spoke up. Emma, your father made a very brave choice that day. He stood up for what he believed was right, even though it cost him his career. That takes a special kind of courage. But Daddy, Emma said, if you had it to do again, would you do the same thing? It was the question I had asked myself 1,000 times over the years. Yes, I said firmly. I would do exactly the same thing. Because, sweetheart, there are some things more important than medals or careers. Protecting innocent lives is one of those things. Being able to look at myself in the mirror every morning is one of those things. Emma nodded slowly, then said something that nearly broke me. I'm proud of you, Daddy. I'm proud that you saved those people. I pulled her close, feeling tears I had held back for 15 years finally starting to fall. Sarah wrapped her arms around both of us. You know what? I said after a moment. I think it's time I took that medal out of the box. Not to display it, but so you can see it. So you can understand that sometimes being brave means making hard choices that not everyone will agree with. The next day, I went into my office and found the small wooden box I hadn't opened in years. Inside was the Bronze Star still in its case, along with my other service medals. I brought them to the living room where Emma was waiting on the couch. This is a Bronze Star, I explained. It's given for heroic achievement in a combat zone. I received it for my service in Afghanistan, including the operation I told you about. Emma reached out tentatively, and I nodded that it was okay. She picked it up carefully. It's heavy, she observed. It is. Heavy with meaning, heavy with memory. That afternoon, Emma and I went to the craft store and bought a shadow box. Together, we arranged my medals in it, along with a small photograph from my deployment, but instead of hanging it prominently, we put it in my office. On the bottom of the shadow box, Emma helped me attach a small plaque. She chose the words herself. Courage is doing what's right, even when it's hard. That Memorial Day conversation changed something in our family. It opened up a dialogue about service, about sacrifice, about the complexity of military life. Emma started asking more questions about my service, about history, about how we honor those who serve. A few weeks later, I was invited to speak at Emma's school for Veterans Day. I brought my shadow box and told a simplified version of my story. I talked about service, about teamwork, about making hard choices. After my talk, several parents came up to me. One father, a current army officer, shook my hand. I heard about Kala Inao. What you did took guts. Another parent, a veteran herself, had tears in her eyes. My brother was killed in Afghanistan. He was on a patrol that went wrong because intelligence was bad and orders were followed without question. I wish someone had had the courage to say, wait, something's not right here. These conversations reminded me that my story wasn't unique. Across the military, soldiers face these impossible decisions. There are no easy answers, no perfect solutions. As the months passed, I noticed a change in myself. For years, I had carried guilt alongside my pride in saving those families, but Emma's question had forced me to confront those feelings directly. And in explaining my choices to her, I found a kind of peace I hadn't felt since that August day in Afghanistan. The bronze star sits in its shadow box in my office now. I don't look at it every day, but knowing it's there matters. It's not hidden in shame, but it's not displayed for glory either. It's there as a reminder that courage comes in many forms, that doing the right thing isn't always the same as following the rules. On Memorial Days now, our family has a new tradition. We still have the barbecue, but we also take a moment, just the three of us, to talk about service and sacrifice. We talk about the soldiers who didn't come home, the ones who gave everything. And every year, Emma asks me to tell her the story again. The details don't change, but her understanding deepens. This year at 7, she understood courage. Next year, she'll understand more about sacrifice. The year after, something about moral complexity. By the time she's grown, she'll understand the full weight of that medal and carry forward the lesson I learned in Afghanistan. That true courage isn't about following orders blindly or earning medals. It's about standing up for what you believe is right, accepting the consequences and living with integrity even when the cost is high. That's the medal that really matters, the one you can't pin on a uniform. It's the medal of a life lived with conscience and courage, the kind of honor that can't be given or taken away. And that, as I watch Emma grow into a thoughtful, compassionate person, is the greatest honor of all.